नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्विदांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमावो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादि पश्चात् देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे पंकरोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यम् ईश्वरं हरिः ओम् तत्सत् नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णकृष्णाय। So I'm going to just quickly share my screen, if you could. So it's 299, Prabhu, from 299, right?
That's right. 299 till 13.
Okay. If it's okay, I'm going to also record it on my side, Prabhu.
Yes, sure, Prabhu. And I will be uploading this on YouTube. So you can take that recording also if you want to.
We're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, ninth chapter, verse number 9 onwards. तस्मै स्वलोकं भगवान् सभाजितः सन्दर्शयाम् आश परं न यत्परं व्यपेतसङ्क्लेशविमोहसाद्वशं स्वदृष्टवद्भिर्पुरुषैरभिष्टुतं तस्मै स्वलोकं भगवान् सभाजितः सन्दर्शयाम् आश परं न यत्परं व्यपेतसङ्क्लेशविमोहसाद्वशं स्वदृष्टवद्भिर्पुरुषैरभिष्टुतम्. Word to word by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Tasmai, unto him, Swalokam, his own planet or abode, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sabhajitaha, being pleased by the penance of Brahma, Sandarshayam Asa, manifested, Param, the Supreme, Na, not, yet, of which, Param, further Supreme, Vyapeta, completely given up, Sanklesha, 5 kinds of material afflictions, Vimoha, without illusion, Sadvasam, fear of material existence, Swadrishtavadbihi, by those who have perfectly realized the self, Purushaihi, by persons, Abhishtutam, worshipped by. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikunta, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self realized persons freed from all kinds of miseries, and fear of illusory existence. I'm going to read it one more time. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikunta, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. So before we go into the purport, if we try and understand how we, Srila Prabhupada, and in this verse, it beautifully describes, citing by the version of the Lord. So the personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied. Now, what is the scenario here? Let's go to the previous verse, 8th verse. What does the 8th verse talk about? Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1000 years by the calculations of the demigods. He heard this transcendental vibration from the sky and he accepted it as divine. Thus, he controlled his mind and senses, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. Thus, he is known as the greatest of all ascetics. Now, what is the scenario that we are talking about here? I'm sure in the previous classes you would have gone through it. Just for us to recap here, Lord Brahma's, is the agency for the secondary creation. We see that the description in the Srimad Bhagavatam is about the first is Sarga, which means the primary creation, and then the second is the Visarga, or the secondary creation. So, what is the very purpose of Lord Brahma's appearance here from the navel of the Supreme Lord? It is for the purpose of the creation, right? So, there is a very clear purpose for which the Lord has manifested Lord Brahma there. And then what happened? The Lord Brahma underwent penances for 1000 years. And how did he get the idea to perform penance, right? So when he was manifested in the lotus flower that sprouted from the navel of the Supreme Lord, right? He had no clue as to why he was sitting there, what he was supposed to do. He had no idea. And then he is traveling down the stem of the lotus and goes all the way down to see, where did I come from? Where does this lotus even sprout from? I have no idea. He is not able to figure out because everything is so dark around him. And then what does he do? He again climbs up and goes and sits in the lotus. And then he is thinking, what am I supposed to do? And then he hears this sound, thapa, thapa. So here it says, thapanam, enlightening, tapaha, penance, tapiyan, extremely hard penance. So he heard this sound, this transcendental vibration from the sky, which says thapa, thapa, thapa. Now, even if you hear a sound, you should be in a position to translate what that sound means, right? Because he was just created. But how do you know? What are you supposed to do? What does tapa mean? What are you supposed to do with that? If you've already gone through it, you will know. But he was just created. How will he know? So we can understand that here by the explanation that he underwent tapasya or penances, which means he was able to understand. So how did he understand it? He was able to understand because the Lord is seated within the heart, and with the purpose, the Lord is able to give him that understanding. So for us, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you would have read that Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti de, Krishna says. That I give the intelligence by which you can come to me. So we have all been created for a purpose. What is that purpose? Right? Like Lord Brahma has been created for the purpose of creation, the secondary creation. Every living entity has been created. Why? Of course, first we are coming into this material world because it is a choice that we made. What is the choice that we made? We made a choice that we do not want the supremacy, or we do not want the instructions. We do not want the lordship of the Supreme Lord. I want to enjoy independent of you. I don't want you. That is the first thing that we chose. And he said, okay, if that is what you want, then spiritual world is not the place for you. You need to have a separate place I will give you. And so what he does is he creates a sthana. So what is the third subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam? We have sarga, visarga, and then we have sthana, right? So what is this sthana? Sthana means there should be a place. If you have to live somewhere and you want to live independent of the Supreme Lord, you need to have a place. So he says, okay, I'll create a place, because we don't know how to even enjoy independent of the Lord. Do we have a clue about it? No, we don't have a clue about it. So even the facility for us to enjoy separately from him, who gives it? The Lord himself gives it. And that is the creation of this material planet. So what does he do? He expands himself as Karana Udakashaya Vishnu, and he is sleeping there in the causal ocean. Karana Udaka means, Karana means cause, Udaka means ocean. And so Karana Udaka Shai, the one who is sleeping in the causal ocean, Karana Udaka Shai Vishnu, who's also called as Mahavishnu, he glances in space, right? And when he glances, all the elements are created, and by the combination of these elements, there are, millions and millions of Brahmandas that are created there, right? So Subal Prabhu, just to kind of highlight to you, I know we have I don't know how many verses from 9 to
13. So four more.
13.
Four more.
So there are a lot of there's a lot of purport. So
Yeah.
I'll try and see how much in its entirety that we can cover within the time that is available.
Yes, Prabhu.
But I just wanted to give a background, because I am meeting these wonderful devotees for the first time. So just to kind of bring the overall understanding of where we are in terms of setting the scene, I want to do that before I go into the actual verses.
Yes, yes.
If
Please
that's
feel free,
okay.
Prabhu. You can take a call of skipping the purport and just explaining by yourself. Thank
Fine,
you.
bro. Thank you, bro. So the Lord glances, and all of these, elements are used to create this material world. So there is the Pancha Mahabhut, which is the earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the Pancha Tanmatras, the objects, and then there is the Indriyas, the Jnana Indriyas, the knowledge acquiring senses, which are 5 in number that are created. And then there is the karma indriyas, the working senses which are created. So if you put all of them, Pancha Mahabhut, Jnana Indriyas 5, Karma Indriyas 5, and Pancha Tanmatras, the objects for enjoyment. If you take all of them, there are 20 elements. And then there is Man, Buddhi, Ahankar, there is 23. And then finally, the Lord injects the time element. When the time element is injected into that, then the whole thing becomes functional. Loved up, loved up, loved up, loved up. Means the material world becomes functional. Until then, the material world is in its suspended animated stage. There's no animation in it, it's in its suspended stage. So the time element is what makes this material world function. So what is the difference between this material world and the spiritual world? The material world is controlled by time, and spiritual world is not controlled by time. That does not mean that in the spiritual world there is no time. There is time, but the time cannot control the spiritual world. But in the material world, the time is the one that controls everything. Kala, right? Aham kalosmi, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that I, in the form of time, control everything in this material world, right? And so he creates this material. And then finally, okay, the basic elements, the structure and everything is there. Now somebody has to come and create further, no? Because the Lord is not going to be doing everything. So he also enters into every anda. Every anda means it's literally an egg. So there is an egg-shaped system, solar system, so to say. And in that system, there are 14 planetary systems there. So, there are 14 planets starting from Bhurloka in the middle, right in the middle, and then Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Mahaha, Japa, Tapaha, Janaha, Satyam, like that. And then below the Bhuloka, there is Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Talatala, Patala, like that. There are 14 planetary systems that are there. This is what constitutes one Brahmanda. Why is it called Brahmanda? Because there is one Brahma, and this Anda is controlled by that Brahma. And like that, there are so many millions and millions of Brahmandas, which means that there is not just one Brahma, there are millions and millions of Brahmas. And then in each Brahmanda, that Mahavishnu also expands and enters into it in the form of another Vishnu form who's called as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is sleeping in the Garbha ocean. Garbha is the water in which he is sleeping, which is literally means sweat. But when you think about how can you sleep in a sweat ocean, shouldn't it be stinking? No. The sweat of the Lord is full of gandha. It's everything that emanates from the Lord is completely pure. So the Lord is sleeping on that ocean, and from that Lord, who's called the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from his navel is where the lotus flower sprouts. And on top of that lotus flower is where Brahma is. So just this, why I'm explaining this is not to overwhelm you, but you might already know this. For you to understand the context of where we are, where is Brahma? What is he doing? Why did he do tapasya? So that you can create that picture right in front of you in your mind. Right? And so from that lotus, there is Brahma, and Brahma is trying to figure out what for I have been created. And then Brahma hears the sound tapa, and then he understands tapa means penance, and then he begins to do penance. Now he does not know how to do penance. He understands his penance, but what am I supposed to do in penance? What am I supposed to do? Should I chant something? Should I think of something? Should there be an object of my thinking or my vision or my goal? What should it be? He had no idea. In fact, he had no idea about what should be the duration for which he has to do the tapasya. So all of this knowledge has been given by the Lord within his heart. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti et Suraya. Srimad Bhagavatam explains that not only did the Supreme Lord create Lord Brahma, but he also gave him within his heart the knowledge as to how to do things. The entire knowledge of the Brahman was given to him. Tene Brahma, which means about Brahman, Hridaya in his heart, Adikavaye, Adikavi means Brahma. So the knowledge of Brahman was given to Adikavi Brahma within his heart. And so he got this and then he started to do tapasya. What was he given? He was given the mantra called the Kama Gayatri. What is the Kama Gayatri mantra supposed to be for? Is the mantra to be meditated for the purpose of creation. So he gave this Kama Gayatri mantra for him. And so Lord Brahma meditated on this for 1,000 years by the calculation of the Devatas or the demigods. And thus, by following the order of the Supreme Lord, that the way to execute the order of the Lord is only through tapasya. He showed an example. That is what is said here. Thus, and the penances he executed were a great lesson for the living entities. So, what should the living entities do? We should also get engaged in tapasya. Right? Tapasya is what will get us to achieve something. Even if you have to achieve something materially, you need to do tapasya, correct? You have to study for 12 years and then you have to get into a college, you have to get a degree, you have to score good marks, and then you have to apply for a job or maybe open a business. And then you have to literally slog for like 12 hours to 15 hours if you're doing a business, or if you go to a job, 12 hours, so on and so forth. This is all tapasya. Without tapasya, we cannot get anything, right? So tapasya is required. But now the question is, for different tapasyas, different types of practices are there. But what is the tapasya one has to do if one has to achieve the supreme goal? That is what we need to understand. Now we are performing so many tapasyas and we are achieving something. Like for example, we study, we get our 12th standard and we get very good marks. Okay. And then we get a very good admission. Probably if you are in India, you get into one of the IITs, top IITs, we are very happy. Or in the international, if you go and get into one of those top universities in the world, in the Americas or in the in UK or wherever it is, we feel very successful. But then as you perform these various forms of so-called tapasya, which is on the material platform, and you achieve something, the achievement does not give you satisfaction. You achieve something, there is no satisfaction. And then you go towards something else, and then you try to get more satisfaction, but it still does not satisfy you despite the fact that you have achieved it. You're going one top of the other. Maybe we're all from some small village in India. And then we worked very hard, and then we came to one of the cities in India. And then we worked very hard and worked the corporate ladder and climbed up there. And finally we ended up in Dubai. And maybe, some of them will go further and say, I will want to go and end up in America being a, even more better job, more money and more facilities. And then somebody who is even more very successful will go to SpaceX and say, I want to go Mars and explore. Like that, endlessly, he can keep going from one planet to the other. But still, no matter whatever is the level of tapasya he performs or the success that he attains through that tapasya, they will find satisfaction in it. Why? Because this material world is not a world that is supposed to give you satisfaction. Dukhalayam asashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddhim paramam gatim. That this material world means that everything is impermanent, and because of the impermanent nature of the material world, you will not find happiness in it. It's not that there is no happiness. Even being here in this material world, you can be happy if you're content with what you have. But you will never be content with what you have. You will always look for more than what you have. That will be the nature of the living entity. Okay. So with that said, here, when Lord Brahma performed the tapasya, to what purpose? To please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so what happened? Because he had that goal, what did the Supreme Personality of Godhead reciprocate with? He said, the Personality of Godhead being thus very much satisfied with the penance. So the penance was focused to the Personality of Godhead, and the Personality of Godhead became satisfied. And what was the result of that satisfaction? He was pleased to manifest his personal abode, which is Vaikuntha. Right? The supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode is adored by all self-realized persons. Which means what? If one has to appreciate the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha, one has to be a self-realized person. Which means he has to understand that, oh, where did I come from? Why did I come from? What am I doing here? Why am I not happy? I need a better place. So only those people can understand the nature of the supreme abode or the transcendental abode. And what is the nature of such self-realized person? They are freed from all kinds of miseries. Which means they are not, two things we can understand, which means they have nothing to do with the material world. That itself means that you are free of miseries, correct? If you have nothing to do with the material world, you are free of miseries. You don't have to worry about anything. Or it means that they might be there, but they are not touched, or they are untouched by the miseries of the material world. Miseries might be happening around them, but they have a very clear understanding. How? Because of their self-realization. Now, why that self-realization does not happen? Because of illusory existence. We are always living in illusion. That is why we are not having self-realization. But the moment we come out of that illusory existence and then self-realize ourselves, then the fear is gone. What is in store for me tomorrow? That fear is gone. Because we know what is in store for me tomorrow. Right? Because Krishna says that if you have performed some dharma now, you will get a better life tomorrow, which means you will get a human body of life. Neha vikrama nasosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. He says that even if you perform very little dharma, then you can be assured that in your next life you don't go down into animalistic forms of life, you will get a human form of life. Krishna says that. Right? By the way, if any of you are not able to follow, please raise your hand and feel free to ask a question. Okay, I don't want to keep going. If you're not able to follow through, please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. Okay. So the fear is coming purely because of our illusory existence. So with that, let's move on to the purport. Who wants to read the purport? One of you can raise your hand and read the purport. Sushil Kumar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
The troubles of penance accepted by Lord Brahma were certainly in the line of devotional service, bhakti. Otherwise, there was no chance that Vaikuntha's or Swalokam, the Lord personal abodes, would become visible to Brahmaji. The personal abodes of the Lord, known as Vaikuntha's, are neither mythical nor material as conceived by the impersonalists. But realization of the transcendental abodes of the Lord is possible only through devotional service. And thus the devotees enter into such abodes. There is undoubtedly trouble in executing penance, but the trouble accepted in executing bhakti yoga is transcendental happiness from the very beginning, whereas the trouble of penance in other processes of self-realization, jnana yoga, dhyan yoga, etc., without any vaikuntha realization, ends in trouble only and nothing more. There is no profit of beating husk without grains. Similarly, there is no profit in executing troublesome penances other than bhakti yoga for self-realization. Executing
So
bhakti.
we'll stop there for one moment.
Okay.
So Srila Prabhupada begins the purport by saying the troubles of penance, which means penance means one has to take the very word tapasya means tapa, means that there is some kind of austerity that is taken, which means there is some trouble in it. And then he concludes the line by saying there is no profit in beating husks without grains. Now it is okay to take trouble as long as there is going to be some result that is going to come out of it that is beneficial, right? But now if you know for sure that there is nothing that is going to come out of it because it is just beating husks that are without grain, why should you take the trouble? That is the question that Srila Prabhupada is posing here with us. What does it mean? As I was just explaining before, that no matter whatever trouble that you take it or penance that you do to achieve success, like for example, get very good marks in your 12th grade and then get your very best of the universities and then get out of the best of the universities with a gold medal, and then no matter what kind of job that you get and then how far you travel in your corporate life or in your career, ultimately you will not get satisfaction because this is not a place that is supposed to give you satisfaction. So which means it's like a husk which does not have a grain. You're trying to beat a husk where there is no grain, which means you're trying to find happiness where there is no happiness, because this is dukkha alaya. This is a place without happiness or without permanent happiness, right? So why are you wasting your time? So Srila Prabhupada is saying we are simply wasting our time as long as we are working within the realm of this material world. You have to put effort. If you know that there is going to be some real result that is going to come out of it, that is where you have to put in your effort. So that is the point that he is trying to make here. Similarly, there is no profit in executing troublesome penances other than bhakti yoga for self-realization. Why? Because we know that when we perform bhakti yoga, you will get the result. Now, how do we know that? That is exactly what is explained here. That the penance of bhakti yoga, Srila Prabhupada begins that the troubles of penances accepted by Lord Brahma were certainly in the line of devotional service, which means bhakti, and there is penance means yoga. And so there is bhakti and yoga combined there, and it has resulted in the personal abode being manifest there and the Supreme Lord himself coming in there. So which means there is result in it. So you know for sure. It's not a dotted lines conditions apply or anything. It is assured. It is a guarantee that you will get the Lord, right, by performing such penance. And that is what is explained here. In fact, Krishna even explains in the Bhagavad Gita, what is that verse? Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta shakta chetasam. Klesho
It's
adhika.
12.5, I think, right?
Why is it taking Klesho adhikataras?
You can go to library itself.
Yeah, it's there, 12.05, right? So here, in this 12th chapter where Krishna explains the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Klesho adhikatarastesham avyakta ashakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavat virvapyate. He says this so-called other processes of yoga, which he classifies as unmanifest yoga, or or focusing on the unmanifest, or in that sense avyakta. Avyakta means in one sense mayavad, which means anything other than Krishna is maya. So any other form of yoga that does not result in Krishna is simply unmanifested ashakta cheta. So he says simply going after that is kleshaha. Klesha means troublesome. Uses the word adhikatarha, not ordinary trouble, very much trouble, he says. Right? So he says to make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So there are two things that he says. One is advancement is very troublesome, and then to make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Right? There is both dukkha, and then there is also a problem with the process itself. There is klesha and there is dukkha. So that is what is explained here. And then in the next verse, what does he say? Etu sarvani karmani mayi sanyasya matparaha ananyena iva yogena mam dhyayanta upashate teshamaham samudarta mrityu samshara sagarat bhavami na chirat partha mayi aveshita chetasam. He says, but those who worship me, which means bhakti. Now in the previous verse, he is talking about all other forms of yoga, which at the end he is going to call sarvadharman parityajya. So when he talks about sarvadharman, which mean all other forms of yoga except bhakti. So he says, but those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation. That is sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. That is the meaning. And what are they doing? They're engaged in devotional service. And what does that mean? Always meditating upon me and having fixed their minds upon me. For them, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Why should we get delivered from the ocean of birth and death? Because we know here there is no happiness, and even if there is the so-called happiness, it is not permanent. So he says, I will take you to a place where there is happiness and there is permanent happiness. So he is delivering you from this material world. So is that a better goal? Is that a husk with grain? Some benefit is coming out of it. So that is what is being mentioned here. So executing troublesome penance other than bhakti yoga for self-realization is useless. If it is for bhakti, it is good. If it is not for bhakti, then it is useless. Go on, Prabhu. Sushil Prabhu, if you can continue.
Executing Bhakti Yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted out of the abdomen of the transcendental personality of the Godhead. For Lord Brahma was seated there. Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased to show Brahmaji his personal abode. Shri Jiva Goswami in the comments of the Karma Sandarbha annotation of Srimad Bhagavatam cites quotations from the Barhad Arankya Upanishad, Vedic evidence. It is said that Yagnavalkya described the transcendental abode of the Lord to Gargi, and the abode of the Lord is situated above the highest planet of the universe, namely Brahmalok. This abode of the Lord, though described in revealed scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, remains only a myth for the less intelligent class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Herein the word Swarashtra Vadev is very significant. One who has actually realized his self realizes the transcendental form of one's self. Impersonal realization of self and the supreme is not complete, because it is just an opposite conception of material personalities. The personality of the Godhead and the personalities of the devotees of the Lord are all transcendental. They do not have material bodies. The material body is overcast with 5 kinds of miserable conditions, namely ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption. As long as one is overwhelmed by these five kinds of material miseries, there is no question of entering into the Vaikuntha Lokas. The impersonal conception of one's self is just the negation of material personality and is far from the positive existence of the personal form. The personal forms of the transcendental abode will be explained in the following verses. Brahmaji also described the highest place of Vaikunthas as Golok Vrindavan, where the Lord resides as a cowherd boy, keeping transcendental Surbi cows and surrounded by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Okay, continue.
Yeah, finish. I think it's only one more paragraph. You can finish that.
Chintamani Prakar Santhyus Kalpavriksha Lakshavateshu Surbhir Vipalyantam Lakshmi Sahastra Sat Samprabha Sevyaman Govind Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This statement of the Bhagavad Gita, Yad Gatva Na Nirvate Tad Dharma Pranam Mama, it is also confirmed herewith. Param means transcendental Brahman. Therefore, the abode of the Lord is also Brahman, non-different from the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. The Lord is known as Vaikunt, and his abode is also known as Vaikunt. Such Vaikunt realization and worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So here, in contrast to the performance of penance, Srila Prabhupada brings about by saying executing bhakti yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted of the abdomen. Means it's so easy, which means you can sit at your own, it's like you can work from home forever. If your company is going to tell you you can work from home for good, will you not feel happy about it? Because at the comfort of your place with everything that is accessible for you within the limits of your home, you can do whatever you want. And in a similar way here, he says, executing bhakti yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted out of the abdomen of the transcendental personality of Godhead. Which means, in whatever position you are, whatever state you are, whatever body you are, whatever language you are, whatever country you are, whatever age you are, it doesn't matter, you can perform bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga can be performed in any state. So it is that simple. Whereas the other process, the penance process, is not very simple. He already said it is klesho adhikatarastesham. It is very, very troublesome. He already said that. That is number one. So bhakti yoga is very easy as compared to the other processes of yoga. Which are the other processes of yoga that is described here in the previous paragraph? Like jnana, dhyana, ashtanga, hatha yoga, and even for that matter, karma yoga. All of those processes of yoga are difficult. And then he says, what is the other ingredient required in the bhakti, or the only ingredient that is required in bhakti? He gives that in this line. What does he say? Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased to show Brahmaji his personal abode. What does it mean? It means the only ingredient that is required in bhakti is that an intent to please the Lord. That is all is required. If you have the intent to please the Lord, that is all the Lord is interested. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati. Krishna is not interested in the content. What is that you are offering to him? Even if it is a simple leaf, water, flower, and fruit. It is the most simplest of the things that you can get. Even a poorest of the poor can get it. But bhaktyamam prayachati, as long as there is bhakti. Bhakti means what? Intent. You are showing the intent that, oh my dear Lord, it doesn't matter what position I am in, I want to please you. If you show that intent, like sometimes, right? If you are a very rich father, when your child has a birthday, you can probably buy him a very rich gift. A rich, we saw recently there was a very rich marriage. Some people gifted Ferraris. They were like literally tens of Ferraris in one marriage gift. We all take marriage gift in a cover. But in this marriage, there was Ferraris coming and landing from different countries, and Rolls Royces coming and landing from different countries, and so on and so forth, like that. But there might be another father who might not be that very rich. For a birthday, he might just buy a nice chocolate bar and give it to the child. Happy birthday, my dear child. The child is happy. The father, according to the means he has given, and the child also understands, oh, my father has given me this. He does not say, no, what kind of a father are you? You didn't give me a Ferrari, so I'm not happy with you. It doesn't say that. Maybe some modern kid might say that, but generally, the child understands, right? So, if you show the intent, even if it is a small thing, that the love that is shown through what you give is what is more important than what is actually given, or the content of what is given, right? And so that is explained here by saying Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased, which means the intent that he shown had been reciprocated by the Supreme Lord. And that is commented by Srila Jiva Goswami in the Krama Sandarbha of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he cites from Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. It is said that Yajnavalkya described the transcendent abode of the Lord to Gargi. So what was the result of Lord being pleased? He showed the planet, or the highest planet of the universe, which is the supreme abode of Goloka, which is even above Brahmaloka. So this abode of the Lord, although described in revealed scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, remains a myth. To who? To people who don't have knowledge. But if you are ready to accept knowledge, then you can understand it. Now, how do you accept knowledge? The knowledge is given by the one who received the perfect knowledge. So Lord Brahma received the perfect knowledge, and he has given this knowledge in his Brahma Samhita. What does he said? Chintamani prakara sadmashu kalpa vriksha laksha abruteshu surabhir abhipalayan. So he is describing how Goloka is as he received the knowledge. And so if we simply understand that, he says laksha abruteshu surabhir. There are so many surabhi cows there. It is kalpa vriksha it is full of chintamani stones. It is Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam. Many Sahasra Lakshmis are serving Lord Vishnu there. And who is that ultimate personality? He is Govindam. He is Adipurusha, and I'm worshipping him. This is Brahma's statement. So the creator of this world itself is making this confirmation. So why don't we take it? And that is receiving knowledge from authority. And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, if you go to that Dhamma which is being described here by Brahma, Yad Gatvana Nivattante Tad Dhama Paramam Mama, that abode from where you will never return back, is that my abode. So Param means transcendental Brahman. Therefore, the abode of the Lord is also Brahman, and the Supreme Lord is also Brahman. The Supreme Lord is also known as Vaikuntha, and the place where he lives is also Vaikuntha. And that is the realization that one can, and worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense. Such Vaikuntha realization worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense, which means through the processes of bhakti, one can attain that ultimate abode. Now, going back to what I was explaining in the beginning as to why we have been given this sthana, this place of the material world. The very purpose that has been given is that so that we learn a lesson that there is no possibility for us to enjoy independent of the Lord. As I was explaining, the tapasya that we are performing for the so-called material endeavor is resulting always in frustration. If the faster that you learn that there is only frustration, then the faster you can get out of this material world. Otherwise, you continue to experiment. Oh, maybe there is, light at the end of the tunnel. And then you keep traveling. But then when you look back, our life is already gone. We have 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. We don't know how much is left over. Right? So the faster that we take up and try and understand, we are searching for something that is not in here, then we will change our direction. That does not mean giving up everything that we have today and what we are doing today. Many people think that taking up to Krishna consciousness or bhakti means giving up what we have today. No, we don't have to. All we need to do is that whatever we have to direct it in the service of the Lord. Like, I'm not a sannyasi, I'm a grahastha. I have a family, I have a wife, I have children, I work very hard to make money, right? We're doing everything. I eat, I sleep, I do all of the normal things that other people in the world do. Or all of us in Krishna consciousness do the same thing. We don't give up everything and, suddenly we became sannyasis. No. And we have bhaktas, like for example, Ambarisha, he was a king. So even he was a king, he can be a devotee. We have great businessmen who are devotees, right? Even from the Puranas and even in today's context, there are devotees who are, great businessmen and who are devotees. So devotional service does not have to do directly with, our current state. In any state, one can perform devotional service. That is the point that is being brought about here, right? So moving on to the next verse. Pravartate yatra, text number 10. Pravartate yatra rajastamahattayoho Sattvang cha mishram na cha kala vikramaha na yatra maya kim utapare harer anuvrata yatra sura surachitaha. Translation. In that personal abode of the Lord, the material modes of ignorance and passion do not prevail, nor is there any of their influence and goodness. There is no predominance of the influence of time. So, what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter that region. Without discrimination, both the demigods and the demons worship the Lord as devotees. So, here is a further description. There in the previous verse, it said the Lord was satisfied, so he manifested the spiritual world. And then in this verse, there is a description of what is the nature of that spiritual world. Is it any different? Is it worth pursuing it? We are saying that we want to go from material world to spiritual world. But what is different in the spiritual world that is not there in the material world? That question should come to any intelligent person, right? And Srimad Bhagavatam is answering that question, that there is a difference. What is the difference? This material world is made of the three modes of material nature, which is ignorance, passion, and goodness. There is always a mixture of these three modes of material nature. Okay, what is wrong with the three modes of material nature, Prabhu? Well, the problem with the three modes of material nature is that they create duality. What is duality? Duality means there is happiness and there is distress. There is heat and cold. Now, what is wrong with that? The problem with that is none of them stay permanent. It is very hot in Dubai. Now we are all waiting for winter to come so that it becomes a little bit more cooler. So we can all put on our shorts and go out for a nice evening stroll of thing instead of having to go out in the sun, right, and sweat it out there. And then when winter comes, we're already sad because winter in Dubai is very short. And already December comes and then we have to finish winter. And then again, in no time, summer comes back again and it is there to stay for 8 more months or 9 more months. We don't know. So this frustration that we are expecting for something and when you get it, that it doesn't stay with you for too long, that creates frustration. Where does that frustration come from? That frustration comes from the interaction of the three modes of material nature, which creates duality. Duality means opposite things. If there is heat, there is cold. There is happiness, there is distress. There is honor, there is dishonor. Like that. Right? So what should you do? And then further he says, they do not prevail. These ignorance and passion is not there in the spiritual world, which means there is no duality there. And then further he says, nor is there any of their influence in goodness. In material world, goodness is there. Is goodness good? Yes, it is good. That is why it's called goodness. But then the problem in the material world for goodness is that it is always tinged with both ignorance and passion. There is always a little bit of ignorance and passion mixed with it. It can never be pure, 100%. There is a contamination of goodness. But that is not there in the spiritual world. That is why that goodness is called Suddha Sattva or pure goodness, which means it is in its purest form without any adulteration or any mixture there. So there is no predominance of the influence of time. What does it mean? Influence of time, what does it cause? I was just telling. The influence of time causes heat and cold. There is summer. And after the summer time is gone, then winter. And then again summer. Like that, time will keep on moving things in duality. There is happiness. You enjoy happiness for some time. Like they say, some time, right? So that is the time that defines that. And then you move into distress. Like that, it keeps rotating. It is always a what they call a curve. It keeps moving up and down and up and down and up and down, right? So what to speak of the illusory external energy? It cannot enter in that region. So which means everything that is there in the material world is simply a reflection. You don't see that in the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, everything that you are expecting are permanent, and it is there, and it is there only to give you bliss, Ananda. Spiritual world means Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, which means it is Chinmaya, it is Ananda, and it is Rasa. It is tasteful. It gives a mellow. There is a relationship. There is always bliss there. But here, there is bliss. I mean, not really bliss. What we can call it bliss. There is some happiness, but we can't even really call it happiness. You know why? Because before we can call it happiness, it is gone. That is the problem with this material world. So who wants to read the purport? Uday Prabhu, you want to?
Yeah, I read purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. The kingdom of God, or the atmosphere of the Vaikuntha nature, which is called the Tripad Vibhuti, is 3 times bigger than the material universe and is described here as also in the Bhagavad Gita in a nutshell. This universe, containing billions of stars and planets, is one of the billions of such universes clustered together within the compass of the Mahatattva, and all these millions and billions of universes combined together constitute only 1/4 of the magnitude of the whole creation of the Lord. There is the spiritual sky also. Beyond the sky are the spiritual planets under the names of Vaikuntha, and all of them constitute 3/4 of the entire creation of the Lord. God's creations are always innumerable. Even the leaves of a tree cannot be counted by a man, nor can the hairs in his head. However, foolish men are puffed up with the idea of becoming God himself. Though unable to create a hair of their own bodies, man may discover so many wonderful vehicles of journey. But even if he reaches the moon by his much advertised spacecraft, he cannot remain there. The sane man, therefore, without being puffed up, as if he were the god of the universe, abides by the instruction of the Vedic literature. The easiest way to acquire knowledge is transcendence. So let us know through the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam of the nature and constitution of the transcendental world beyond the material sky.
So we'll pause there.
Okay.
We'll pause there. So the kingdom of God, or the atmosphere of the Vaikuntha nature, which is called Tripad Vibhuti. So I was just explaining about the spiritual world and the material world, and how the material world got created, and many, many Brahmandas, each Brahmanda having 14 planets and millions. And that is what is explained here. All these millions and billions of universes combined together constitute only 1/4 of the magnitude of the entire creation. It's called Ekpad Vibhuti. That is the material world. And the spiritual world, it is Tripad Vibhuti, which means 3 portions, which means 3/4 of the entire creation is the spiritual world. Only 1/4 of it is the material world. So how insignificant it is. And where is this knowledge available? All of this knowledge is available in scripture. So only if one can, so here he says, How are people trying to understand all of these things? They're saying they are trying to discover many wonderful vehicles of journey by which they can go to different places and understand this. But is that required? No. If one simply abides by the instruction of the Vedic literature, that is the easiest way to acquire knowledge in transcendence. So simply receive this knowledge. You cannot go to all the hundreds of countries in the entire world to understand each country. You simply accept it from the authority and then you will understand it. That is the easiest way. And that authority is Srimad Bhagavatam, because it provides everything that is required for you to know not only about this material world, also about the spiritual world. So it makes it easy for you to make a choice. Whether you want to continue in the material world or do you want to make a smart choice and go to the spiritual world. That is the choice that it gives. Continue, Prabhu.
In that sky, the material qualities, especially the modes of ignorance and passion, are completely absent. The mode of ignorance influences a living entity to the habit of lust and hankering. And this means that in the Vaikuntha lokas, the living entities are free from these two things. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Brahma Bhuta stage of life, one becomes free from hankering and lamentation. Therefore, the conclusion is that the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planet are all Brahma Bhuta, living entities, as distinguished from the mundane creatures who are all compact in hankering and lamentation. When one is not in the modes of ignorance and passion, one is supposed to be situated in the modes of goodness in the material world. Goodness in the material world also at times becomes contaminated by touches of the modes of passion and ignorance. In the Vaikuntha Loka, it is unalloyed goodness only. The whole situation. Yeah.
So in that sky, the material qualities of mode of ignorance and passion are completely absent. Where? In the spiritual world. Now, in the material world, it means it is present. Now, what is the influence of that ignorance and passion? That is explained here. Srila Prabhupada explains it. What does he say? Due to ignorance, what happens? It creates the habit of lust and hankering. Lust means what? Being anxious about achieving something, getting anxiety. I want to get this. Hankering, we understand. Because of lust, we get hankering. And then there is lamentation. What is lamentation? Oh, I did not achieve this in the past, so I should achieve this in the future. So the past gives us lamentation. I was not able to get that in my young days. Like, for example, we see, my parents could not give me these things. But my friend, my nearby house, my neighbor boy, he used to enjoy all of these things. I will work so hard in my life so that I will also live a lifestyle just like my friend, who was my next door, who was a rich kid. So what do? We are ending up chasing somebody else's life than chasing our own life. We don't know what we have created for. We are living somebody else's life. A rich kid next to whom we lived becomes our goal. He just happened to be your classmate. He just happened to be your neighbor. Is he the goal of, why you were created in this material world? We forget that. And we start chasing this. Or as devotees also, maybe we're all going to a program. I was giving this example yesterday. We see one devotee is coming in a simple car. Somebody comes in a Mercedes. Somebody comes in a Rolls Royce. Oh, I also want to become like that. I'm also devotee. He is also devotee. Why does he enjoy better facilities than me? So maybe it is devotional. I will also go and get that. And we start working so hard. And this causes two things, which is lamentation and anxiety. Lamentation, why? Oh, I have not been able to achieve all this time in my life. So you lament for that. But now, whatever the little that is left of me in terms of age and energy and everything, I will work so hard to get it. Hankering, anxiety. But when we get out of that, he says that stage is called Brahma Bhuta stage. Why do I have to chase his goal, my neighbor's goal, my colleague's goal, my so-called relatives' goals, my neighbor's goals, and so on and so forth. I have a purpose for which I have taken this human form of life. And if you achieve the supreme abode of the Lord, which is described here as the Vaikuntha Lokas, you achieve all goals because everything is available there. There is Chintamani, whatever you think will be available in front of you. You don't have to do anything. If you want a moon exclusively for you in your house, everybody now wants to work so hard entire life and buy a villa so that they can have their own garden. Right? But can you have your own moon? You cannot. But in the spiritual world, if you decide you want your own moon, you will have your own moon. Whatever you want will be made available for you because it is Chintamani Dham. Whatever you desire, it will give you. Kalpa Vriksha means desire trees. Surabhis means they will give you whatever you want. Now, isn't it a better idea to go there? So you will get what you want. But then you have to work for it. What is that? That is bhakti. And that bhakti will bring you to what stage? It will bring you to a stage called Brahma Bhuta. And that is what is described here. Brahma Bhuta living entities. Brahma Bhuta stage is what stage? It says it's a stage. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sochati na kankshati. He does not lament. He does not have any anxiety. Why? Because he knows I am the child of the richest person in the entire creation, which is Krishna. And there is nothing that Krishna cannot give. So I will worship him rather than I having to please anyone else. Right now we are pleasing different people to have enjoyment. But here is one person who is assuring, Ma Suchaha, don't you worry, I will protect you. But we are not ready to trust him. So what is keeping us away from Krishna? Trust is what is keeping us away from Krishna. But we are believing everyone in the world who is cheating us day in and day out. Everybody is cheating us. Time is cheating us. Our age is cheating us. Our boss is cheating us. The so-called science is cheating us. Everything is cheating us. We want to still continue to trust that. But we do not want to trust the word of the Lord where he says, you surrender to me, I will protect you, don't you worry. That is our problem. That is a problem of our choice, right? And so, if we want to get out of that and go to the unalloyed goodness, then we have to choose to go to the spiritual world. That is called smartness. Narada Muni says, Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovidaha na labhyate yad brahmatam upariyadaha tal labhyate dukkavad anyata shukam. It's a beautiful verse. It came quickly. 1.5.18 in the first canto, 5th chapter. So you would have already crossed this, where it says, Tasyaiva hetoho prayateta kovidaha na labhyate yad brahmatam upariyadaha tal labhyate dukkavad anyata shukam kalena sarvatra gabira ramasa. Kovidaha means one who is intelligent. Viduhu, ko-viduhu, one is supremely intelligent. Tasyaiva hetoho, he will only endeavor for that. What will be endeavor? Na labhyate yad brahmatam upariyadaha. That which he will not get by going to the higher planetary system, Swarga. Adaha means going down to the lower planetary systems, which means whatever you get in this material world, he is not interested in it. Why he is not interested in it? Tal labhyate dukkavad. Because nobody is endeavoring for dukkha. Do you all go to Lulu supermarket or Waitrose, or you go to Carrefour and say, give me 1 kilo of dukkha? No, everybody is going there to want some happiness. Whatever you buy there, so-called happiness, it will give in terms of your food or things that you get and whatever. But still, dukkha comes even without endeavoring for it. Similarly, it will come kalena. As time progresses, if you are destined to get dukkha, you will get. If you are destined to get sukha, you will get. So don't work for that. Work for something beyond that where you can get not this alternating position of dukkha and sukha. Permanent happiness, where can I get? Look for that. And that happiness is available in the spiritual world. Why? Because that is the place where there is unalloyed goodness. When there is unalloyed goodness, there is no hankering, there is no lamentation, and so you will get it. Can you continue, Prabhu? I think it's a pretty long purport.
Yeah. The whole situation
Uday
that
Prabhu, one moment. Prabhu,
Yeah.
if you, Harigopal Prabhu, if you feel you want to skip the purport, please feel free to do so.
Yeah.
I
So
can
essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, right? I know there is 11, 12, and 13. I will leave it to you for your reading. But I think essence of what we wanted to look at, we have already looked at. But what I want to do now is to see if you have any questions and try and answer that question, because that will be more, better in terms of what did you understand and, how do we understand it. If we understand the principle, then we will be automatically be able to, understand what is being said. But before doing that, since we have already assigned these verses, I'm going to just read the translation of these verses 11 and try to briefly explain them. Okay?
Yes,
So,
Prabhu, that will be.
verse number 11,
Thank you.
the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets are described as having a glowing sky bluish complexion. Their eyes resemble lotus flowers, their dress is of yellowish color, and their bodily features very attractive. They are just the age of growing youths. They all have 4 hands. They are all nicely decorated with pearl necklaces, with ornamental medallions, and they all appear to be effulgent. Now, previously, there was the description about the planet itself and the nature of that place in terms of it being goodness. And here, the description is about the inhabitants of the Vaikuntha planets as to how they are all very happily effulgent, ornamented. Everything is there. There is nothing that is. And they're just the age of growing youths, which means they don't even grow old. Wow, that is a better place to live in, right? Text number 12. Some of them are effulgent like coral and diamonds in complexion and have garlands on their heads blooming like lotus flowers, and some wear earrings. So, further description. And text number 13. The Vaikuntha planets are also surrounded by various airplanes. Now, you don't have to book tickets, you can own your own airplanes, your private jets, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas and devotees of the Lord. The ladies are beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. And despite the fact that all of these are available, none of these enamor them because their focus is only one. What is that? Simply to please the Lord. And that is the nature of the spiritual world or the Vaikuntha planets. Okay. So here, what we saw today, just to kind of very quickly summarize, is the description that Lord Brahma was created. He wanted to know what he had to do, and he heard this sound and he did penance, and for 1,000 years in the scale of the demigods. And then the Lord was pleased with that and satisfied, and then he manifested the Vaikuntha planet. And Lord Brahma was able to experience the Vaikuntha planet in terms of what is in there, how is it different than this material world that he is going to be creating. And why did he show that? Because ultimately, Brahma's very purpose of creating in this material world is to elevate all the living entities of this material world to that Vaikuntha planet. That is the one and only job given to Brahma. So from here, what we understand, the very purpose of material world is that at some point in time, all of us need to understand, even though we chose to enjoy independently, there is no such real enjoyment. The real enjoyment that's there in the spiritual world, it is better to get back there. That is the subject matter of what we saw in the verses today. Okay. So I'm going to stop there and see if you have any questions from today's session or anything that you have. You can raise your hands and then we can have questions one by one.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yes, Sushil Prabhu, you can ask your question.
Prabhu, we talked of Vaikuntha, but then there is difference. Golok Vrindavan is also there.
Correct.
So, in so many places, whatever we have read so far, or whatever we are gathering from various lectures, other places also, we get confused because somewhere we use the word Golok Vrindavan, and most of the time they use the word Vaikuntha.
Mm.
how can we, for a layman, how can it be clarified?
So the word Vaikunta refers to Kunta means anxiety. We just saw that the Vaikunta, the nature of the place is that there is no anxiety and there is no lamentation, there is no hankering there. So essentially, the word Vaikunta refers to a place where there is no anxiety. Vai means no, na, and Kunta means anxiety. So the place where there is no anxiety is called Vaikunta, which means essentially the entirety of the spiritual world is referred to as Vaikunta, which means there is no anxiety there because it's a place of pure goodness. Within that Vaikunta, there are different planetary systems where different forms of Vishnu are there. And there is the Dharma of, Keshava Loka, there is Narayana Loka, there is Madhava Loka, and like that. There are so many millions and trillions of Vishnu forms and planets there. And then if you go slowly up towards there within the Vaikunta, you can see separate planets where Lord Ramachandra is there, where there is Ayodhya, there is Dwaraka, and then there is, all of these abodes, Navadvipa is there. And then the ultimate position within the Vaikunta planets, or the topmost position, is where the Goloka Vrindavan is there. And within Goloka Vrindavan is where Sri Radha and Krishna are there. So when we say Vaikunta, Goloka can also be referred to as Vaikunta, but the ultimate abode within the Vaikunta planets, or the spiritual world as it is said, is Goloka Vrindavan. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Then, Prabhu, the Dhruvlok is not in the spiritual planet. It is
No.
below the.
Yes. Dhruvalok is a planet permanently created, which is almost like the spiritual world, like Vaikuntha planet, which never gets destroyed during many of the times when things are unmanifest within the material world. It is slightly above the Brahmaloka and slightly below the Shirodaka, ocean. Shirodaka is the ocean where there is Shirodakashai Vishnu. Who is Shirodakashai Vishnu? He is the one who expands into the various Paramatma features. And the Paramatma is the one who is seated within our heart. Right? Sarvasya Chaham Hriddhi Sannivishto, Krishna says, I'm seated in everyone's heart. That Paramatma is expanding from Shirodakashai Vishnu. Of course, Shirodakashai Vishnu also expands into various other avatars within this Brahmanda. Like that. But Dhruva was given a very special position, which is the Dhruvalok, which is called the North Star, or the bright star in the sky, which is essentially also a permanent planet. It does not get destroyed when all the other planets get filled with water permanently. During the annihilation, when I say permanently, during the annihilation period, which is during the night time of Brahma. Okay, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Uday Prabhu has a question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, around the same topic, it was very nice that you explained about the Brahmalok. It gave me a very good picture today. I have the same question around, in the same Brahmalok, you spoke about different loks.
Can you be a little closer and slightly loud?
Okay, in today's class, you spoke about Brahmalok, basically talking about the Patal Lok as the lowermost most, and then the highermost being the Vaikuntha Lok is not a part of Brahmalok, or is it outside the Brahmalok?
Brahmalok is within the material.
Brahmanda.
Brahmanda is within the material creation. It is within the material world.
Okay. So the Patal Lok is a part of that?
After the Brahmanda, there are layers of covering of the 5 elements. There is a covering of air. There is a covering of water. There is a covering of ether, and so on and so forth. Each 10 times longer than the other in terms of distance. And then there is the space, and then there is finally the place where Mahavishnu is seated. And then after that is a place where there is a small layer of river, which is the Vaitharani. And then you go, inwards, there is the place where between the spiritual world and the material world, we can see there is a Dhamma of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva has a very special position. He is neither in the spiritual world nor completely in the, he's not in the material world, but he is in the spiritual world, but in a separate specialized place within the spiritual world, which is called as Kailash. And after Kailash begins the Vaikuntha Lokas, which is the Tripad Vibhuti that is being described. So Shiva's position is a very, very special position. Unlike what many people understand in this material world, they think Shiva is, there's always a fight, who is great, Shiva or Vishnu, or who is it, who's Dham. No, Shiva is as good as Mahavishnu himself. Right? He's practically non-different from Mahavishnu, but yet he is different. So that is a very, very subtle thing for us to understand, but it is a big understanding that one needs. So in essence, to answer your question, yes, Brahma Loka is not within the spiritual world. It is very much within the material world. That's why Krishna says, Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna, that once, even if you go to Brahma Loka, you have to come back here. But that is not what he says. Mam upetityu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. He says, if you come to my abode, you don't have to come back. So which itself describes that the Brahma Loka is not in the spiritual world, it is in the material world. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Rakesh Prabhu?
RB.
Yeah, sorry, I can't switch on the video. I'm not well. I just wanted to ask two questions. Both are related. One is, if by doing pure devotional service, if you are able to reach the Param Dhama, then you also mentioned that in Param Dhama, whatever you desire will be fulfilled. Then why would somebody have any desire other than worshipping Lord Krishna in Param Dhama? That's one question. The second thing was related to this. If at all somebody reaches Param Dhama and desires something else, then that could be the cause for that person to come back to this material world. But Krishna also says that once you reach Param Dhama, you will never come back to this material world. So how does this apply?
Good question. So the point is that in the spiritual world, everything gets fulfilled. Then finally, I was explaining the spiritual world has airplanes, there are beautiful girls there, and they are like lightning, and everything is described there. And then finally, I made one statement. What is the statement that I made? Even though all of these things are there, but once they reach the spiritual world, they are no more interested in all of those things. Their only interest is in to please the Supreme Lord. Because when the time they reach there, they understand there's nothing for them to desire, because everything that they might want to desire is already available for them. They are fully satisfied. Yayatma suprasidati. The Atma is completely satisfied as soon as it reaches the spiritual world, because that is where it came from. After going there, sometimes we have this feeling, no? Let's say, you were studying in a college like for 4 years, away from home, from parents, from home food, all of those things. And finally, you come for a big vacation to your home. Your mom comes and asks, or dad comes and asks you, Beta, what do you need? He says, nothing. Just being here itself I'm happy. I don't need anything. I've been missing this place for a long, long time. Just being here makes me feel so happy and satisfied. And if you can add a word permanency to it, that is what is spiritual world. So being in the spiritual world means permanently you will feel satisfied. There is nothing more that you will want to ask for. The only thing that you might at all ask for in the spiritual world is, how can I please Krishna more? That is the only thing that you might at all desire. That is what Rupa Goswami describes, Anna Abhilashita Shunyam. All other desires cease in the spiritual world when you are performing pure bhakti. The only desire is to please Krishna. There is no other desire. And when you please Krishna, all other desires automatically get satisfied. So you don't even desire for anything else other than Krishna. That is the beauty. Right? When everything is automatically satisfied, you're sitting there. Like, for example, I'll give you the same example. If you are at home, do you have to desire, I want breakfast? Now the bell has rung. I need to go to the, the dining hall to have, in my hostel, I have to go to the dining hall to go and have food. Do you have to worry about anything? No. Sitting at one place, your father and mother are providing everything to you. Breakfast comes to your table, sometimes to your bed, sometimes to even your mouth. Mother is so affectionate, you have been away, and mother is ready to feed you even if you are 25 years old. That is the nature of mother. And it's in a similar way, in the spiritual world, everything comes to you. You become completely satisfied. In that satisfied stage, you don't ask for anything. Everything comes. You don't ask, oh mom, tomorrow will you cook me breakfast? No, you don't have to ask. Because mom is waiting to cook. When will the next day be? I will cook something different for my son. He will experience something new. She is waiting to do something. In a similar way, in the spiritual world, happiness is waiting to serve you. That is the nature of the spiritual world. So, the very fact that you will not desire for anything does not bring you back to this material world. So, your second question answered is that only if we desire for something, then that desire will bring us to this material world. But there, the desire for desire itself is gone. So, where is the question of desiring and then falling down? That is the point, Prabhu. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yeah, I followed, but a slight this thing. If we were all part, if we had all started off with staying with Krishna, then how did the desire come for us to enjoy, because of which we came to this material world?
Yes. Well, ideally, the acharyas do not discuss about the topic as to at what point in time we actually fell down from the spiritual world. If we are all part and parcel of Krishna, then we might have been in the spiritual world. When did we come to this material world? This question is there. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this as anadi karma phala. If you want to trace as to this karma phala of why we came to this material world, it is anadi, it is untraceable. So can we leave it there? No, the acharyas further describe that there was a certain point in time when the Lord wanted to have a relationship. But now there is another thing that time, at one point in time, why is it being said at one point in time? That is only for us to understand, because in the material world we can only understand by time. In the spiritual world, if you attach a time, the time has no effect in the spiritual world. So you cannot say that on this particular day 1974 on July on 2nd, you can't say that, because there's nothing like that, right? So in the spiritual world, the influence of time is not there, so you cannot fix a time to it, and that is why he calls it anadi karma phala. Anyway, coming to the point, the point is that at that point when the Lord wanted to create these living entities or these jivas, when they became when mamaivangso jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha, the jivas are part and parcels of Supreme Lord. There was a choice whether we wanted to choose material world or spiritual world, and we chose material world. That was the point. But now if you ask me, can you give me a date and time and when it was it and create a chart for it? No, there is no time that can be created. And that is what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that it is anadi karma phala. That is one. Number two is that he further explains, saying that now living in the material world means it's like fire, house on fire. When the house is on fire, we are not going to sit here and understand, when you're sitting inside the house, try and understand how did the fire happen. Was it some short circuit? Was the gas leaking? Or did somebody smoke a cigarette? Or what really happened? Would you sit there and analyze all of these things? No, you will get out of the house because you want to get out of fire. And so he says, Are, you are already in the fire world, the world of fire. Samshara dhava nalalita loka, he says. Now your job is to get out of this place and not sit here and analyze why in the first place I came here. That is not your business, that is Krishna's business. Of course, it is your business, but simply by understanding that business, what are you going to gain? You've already got the result. You got an injury. Now you have to get out of the injury. How does it matter whether the injury happened by falling down from a bike or from a car or from the kitchen, or how does it matter? You simply have to get rid of the injury so that you can go back and enjoy. That's all. Or go back and play, whatever you want to do. Right? That is the point.
Okay, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. One question was there, Dhanishta, my wife, had this. So Krishna is expecting us to worship him in his two-handed Sham Sundar Roop. So the understanding is he is in his Goloka Vrindavan also, he is in his two-handed form. But in Vaikuntha, everybody has a four-handed form. So how does this jail, meaning, is it because being the topmost planet, it has just two-handed form, meaning even people who are with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, do they have two-handed form or do they have the four-handed form?
Krishna is completely independent to have whether 2 hands, 4 hands, or 16 hands. It doesn't matter. He is completely independent. He can have whatever number of hands. In fact, when he manifested himself in front of Devaki, he came in a 400 form, right? Which is within the purview of Vrindavan itself, right? Where Mathura was also part of, the Mathura Mandala, which is practically Vrindavan. So when he manifested in the 400 form. So Krishna can manifest in whatever form he wants. But he is just like a little boy with 2 hands, and that is how he likes it. And so he is there in Goloka Vrindavan in 2 hands. Right? In the Vaikuntha planets where the Vishnu lokas, as they are called it, another name for the other Vaikuntha planets where the Vishnu forms are there, are also called as Vishnu lokas. Mostly that is where the form of the Lord is in his 400 form. Why? Because in his 400 form, he is worshipped with, his what do you call
Opulent.
awe and reverence,
Yeah.
right? His majesty and everything. There he shows a very official form, which is the 400 form, and his power of 4 hands and his Chanka Chakra Gadha Padma and so on and so forth, like that. But in Goloka, his mood is very different. He says, I want to have a relationship just like, a friend. I want to have a, relationship just like your son, Mother Yashoda. I want to have a relationship just like a brother, oh my dear Balaram. I want to have a relationship just like my love, Srimati Radharani and the gopis and so on. So he comes down to, or rather chooses to be in that 2-handed form, which is the most mellowful form, and that form is called Shyamsundara form. So Yam Shyamasundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So the Shyamasundara form is the ultimate and the topmost form of Lord Krishna.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Anybody has any question? I know it's a bit beyond our regular time, but getting this opportunity to have Prabhu here, it's not so easy. So to make the most of it.
I'm always available.
I had one doubt.
I always have. I believe they're all, whoever is joined here, they're all from DSO.
No, it's a kind of a scattered one.
Okay. It's nice to see everyone so active and asking questions, because generally when I say, do you have any questions, nobody is asking questions. But I can see the curiosity and the inquisitiveness that you all want to ask questions. So happy to see. So I'm happy to be here, Prabhu.
Thank you so
Uday,
much.
Prabhu, yes, go on with your question. Uday, Prabhu?
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, this is just one small confusion, because we were referring to Vrindavan, Mathura, then most of the places which are generally on earth.
Yes.
So we talk of lokas, and then we talk of the places within on or in our premise. So it's a bit confusing.
Good question. So when Krishna comes, he comes along with this abode. If we give an example, you all know the president of Russia, right? The president of Russia, what he does is that wherever he goes, let's say if he makes a tour of any country, how many aeroplanes travel with him? Roughly 14 aeroplanes travel with him. They're all customized house-like aeroplanes. And there are roughly about 200 people who travel with him wherever he goes. Why? Because he doesn't believe in anyone. Whatever ingredients that he eats, whatever thing that is cooked, everything is cooked by his own close associates. So he takes everything. Even if he goes to America, he does not even touch anything of American, because he's so scared that these Americans can give something and they might get him or something like that. Right. So he takes all his, paraphernalia, everything with him wherever he goes. Of course, the Lord is not fearful of anything in this material world. He is the one who created the material world. So that was just for you to understand as an example. So wherever he goes, he takes everything along with him. So when he comes and takes his avatar as Krishna, who's also the avatari, he brings the spiritual world along with him with his associates. And that manifestation of Goloka Vrindavan and the supreme planet in this material world is called as Gokul, or also referred to as Vrindavan, Mathura, in the earth planet. Right? So it is a manifestation of the same spiritual world that is there here. But of course, when we go and see the same Mathura, Vrindavan, Prabhu, whatever descriptions that you are giving, Chintamani, Surabhi, I don't see that when I go to Vrindavan. That is because your eyes cannot experience that. There is that Vrindavan, but you can't experience that. You need special eyes for that. What are those special eyes? That is described by Brahma himself. He says, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. When you anoint your eyes with the love of devotion, then you will actually be able to see Krishna even today playing with his cowherd boys in Gokul Vrindavan when you go to Vrindavan Dham. You will be able to see that. It's not some kind of a fictional description. You will be able to see that. Sometimes in our own experience, let us say you are from a particular village and you went out of that village and you settled down in some foreign country like how you are here. But when you go back to your own village for, let's say, a long vacation or something, will you relive that entire life that you lived there as a young boy there? Like you were able to see, you walk through a particular field, you see, what all happened when I was a child here. This uncle used to be there, he used to be living there, these cows used to be there, these, you'll be able to relive the whole thing there just in your experience. That is just a very gross platform. But in the absolute platform, the spiritual world, you will be able to live everything that Krishna lived if you have that particular ability to look at it. And that ability to look at it is called bhakti or devotion. And that devotion is pure of its nature. It does not have any contamination of karma or jnana. And that is what Rupa Goswami says, jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena Krishna anushilanam. That is bhakti ruchyate. That's the topmost of bhakti.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Great. So,
Any other question? All right, it is 11:38. So if there is no other question, I'm happy to take question. I'm not in a rush, but in case if it's time for everyone to get on to other service, thank you all very much for your patient listening and your questions, especially. And thank you, Subal Prabhu, for having me here. And during the Kartik month, having to discuss about Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Let's
Wonderful
do,
clarity, Prabhu, on the subjects. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
so let's do Vaishnav Pranam before we exit. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, गोपाद की जय, His Grace Harigopal Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Good, thank you so much. Many thanks for a wonderful lecture. Please keep coming. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Subal
you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, everyone. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Prasanna
Krishna.
Prabhu,
Kartik month.
Prasanna Prabhu, are you there? Can you?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm here.
Okay,
How are you?
I will call you. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
sure.
Thank you,
Hare
sir.
Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.